Hey everyone, picked up a new toy right here and paid for this with my own money, not sponsored. This is a benchtop jointer. Specifically, this is the Powerfist, aka the store brand 6-inch benchtop jointer from Princess Auto. Been using this for about close on to 2 weeks now, I'd say, and I do have some opinions on it. If you have a small workshop, it's a decent machine for the price. But there are some drawbacks to it. First off, what the heck's a jointer? Well, it's what you'd use to turn something like this into something like this. Though that is a bit of an extreme example. Basically, you'll use it to mill a warped or rough cut board into something a little bit more usable for woodworking. So this thing was in sale for 350 bucks, down from 400 bucks. Comes in a fairly plain cardboard box with some pretty thick packing foam, which is good. You don't want this thing going out of alignment from being banged around during shipping. You get the jointer itself, along with this fence here that needs some light assembly, dust collection bag, which I haven't used, push stick, and this grippy thing right here. Now, in terms of assembly, everything went okay except for a little minor issue with this little locking tab right here. So this lever right here is supposed to go down like that, and you can move the fence around, then lock it back when you're done. The issue was, right out of the box, it was like this in the lock position. So basically, there was no way to really unlock it. Thankfully, it was an easy enough fix. You basically unscrew this thing right here. This is basically sort of acting as a little sort of grub screw, I guess you'd call it. And you can pull that out and put that wherever you want. That was really the only issue I had putting this thing together. Otherwise, assembly went off without a hitch. Now, quick explanation on how a jointer works. The left side here is static. This is not supposed to move. And the middle bit here spins around and has a set of knives that spins and shaves off the wood. And the right side here, that is height adjustable using this knob right here. And this little gauge right there, it'll tell you how far down you have the right side lowered. So if I were to turn this, so I'm turning that knob right there, and you can see it lowering. Now, the height of these spinny blades is supposed to be exactly the same as this left side. So theoretically, if I were really dumb and try to push something in this way, the knife should not be making contact with the wood, because the wood is the exact same height here as it is there. So if I were to continue lowering this thing a ridiculous amount here, so we're kind of bottomed out there now. So we'll push the wood in from the right side, and it then gets the bottom shaved out, and then goes onto the outfeed table. And if I hold the board flat to the outfeed table, you can kind of see that gap right there. Sorry, it's me from the future here. Just realized I didn't actually tell you what the primary use of a jointer was. So cutting board with 3 different pieces of wood, and you can kind of see there's no seams, and these fit very tightly together. Let's say I wanted to do the same thing with these 2 pieces of wood. You can kind of see these are not flush. So what I would do for both pieces of wood, run it through, and as it comes out on this side, the surface that's been cut should be flat. You may have to run it more than once, but that's the gist of it. You would joint this side, joint that side, and then they should fit fairly flush together for gluing. By the way, don't actually do that. Don't lower your planer that much. You'll either end up damaging the blade, the wood, or yourself if you try to shave off too much at once. And that's not a criticism of the tool, by the way. I love it when companies decide that they're not my babysitter and they allow me to be an idiot. And of course, to suffer the consequences of my own making. Now, those of you with keen eyes, and let's face it, a few blind people as well, may have noticed that this fence doesn't look like it's sitting flush. Looks like it's a little bit out of square. We've got no gap here and a gap right there. But I can assure you it isn't square. I have checked on both sides. So a little bit of manufacturing leeway here, but from what I can tell, this is mostly cosmetic and doesn't seem to affect functionality too much, at least in the time that I've been using it. So, elephant in the room time. Why did I decide to get a benchtop joiner rather than a real floor type one? Well, I work out of a tiny garage and there's not much room here. Kind of had to make the best use of space as I could. And yeah, there is quite a bit of spring cleaning still to happen in here. Let me know if you guys want a garage tour or something. Either way, if you're in the market for a jointer and you've got the room for one of the big boys, probably better off heading to Facebook Marketplace and grabbing a used full-size one for way cheaper than what I paid for this. Now, this is a 6-inch jointer, and from what I understand is the standard size. However, you guys know that an extra 2 inches can go a long way. There were quite a couple of times when I had to use a table saw to rip a piece of wood that was slightly too wide to fit on the bed here. And incidentally, that's not always a good idea, because if the board's warped enough, you could get kicked back from the table saw quite violently. So yeah, would have preferred to get an 8-inch one, but Powerfist doesn't make one yet, hopefully. Also, by now you should have noticed that this thing is pretty small. Honestly, from the picture online, I was expecting this thing to be like another 5-6 inches taller, which I'm kind of glad it's not. Kind of gives me room to put it right there on that table without interfering with the outfeed from the planer. So nice and compact, which unfortunately is also a con, as that kind of limits the length of the wood you can put through this thing. You see, once the board passes off the left side, you could unintentionally cant it a bit, like that, lifting it off the blade and messing up your cut. But like I said, that's only going to happen if you're running big boards through it. Gonna assume that most people buying this thing are going to be using it to plane short boards and similar small projects, which this is more than fine for. Also, this thing is relatively light. It's about 35 pounds, which may not seem light, unless you have one of these things. That thing's about 70, 80 pounds, I gotta say. So my perception might be a little bit skewed as to what's light. But yeah, just looking at that thing makes my back hurt. And yes, benchtop jointers should be bolted to your work surface for safety. Do as I say, not as I do. But seriously, bolt it down, your future self will thank you. That said, I haven't had to shift around while I was running wood through it. Now, dust collection, how is it? Honestly, way better than I expected. Here's a video of it running with no vacuum hose attached. So yeah, this is what happens without the vacuum cleaner attached. Just goes in there and bounces right back out again. Those chips coming out, they're coming out with quite a bit of force. So I do think there's a fan or an impeller in here somewhere blowing them out. But I'm not about to open this thing to find out just yet. And yeah, there's very little in the way of chips coming out of the top, so your table won't get too messy. Gonna run this board through again now with the dust collector hooked up. So yeah, no giant mountain of dust this time. Now I did have to do a little bit of a mod right here. That's a piece of heat shrink. Now this old vacuum hose right here is just the right size to be able to fit into the planer right here. So I didn't want to go messing with this or that. And this is a hot dog down a hallway right here. Not good. This is just a little angle piece that I put a piece of heat shrink to. So we just basically got an old plumbing fitting. Not quite small enough to fit in there, but does accommodate the hose pretty nicely. So basically all I did, the angle piece ends right here. Basically just put one of these plumbing fittings right there and slap some heat shrink over the whole thing. And the overlap right there, I was actually trying to get a full sort of overlap to kind of seal this, but I think that's okay. It shrank in a little bit more here than I thought it would. And like I said, it did come with a dust bag here, which is fairly large considering. And it does have a full zipper on the far end when you got to empty it out. So that's one option if you need it. But honestly, this ghetto setup that I've rigged up here seems to be working okay. Got a shop vac coming down here, going to this 5-gallon bucket, which is acting as a dust collector. So the shop vac is literally just shoved into that hole right there and in the middle of the bucket. And I've kind of twisted this pipe here to sort of slow down the debris when it's coming through and let it accumulate in the bucket. And it does seem to be working way better than it should for something this cursed. And this right here is just an old central vac hose. Just pulls out from right there. Now, is there anything I wish was different about this jointer? Well, yeah, the cutting head here uses a box standard, just straight knife, straight across. Kind of wished it used a helical cutter instead. So, what's a helical cutter? Let's say the edge of my hand is that knife right there. It spins around and shaves off giant chunks of the wood at once. Basically, the entire width of the wood. A helical cutter, on the other hand, here's a picture of one, acts like this. So each fingertip is a different cutting head, and as it spins around, a different one will contact the wood. This puts less strain on the motor, makes it a lot quieter, and you can avoid putting strain on the wood, which can cause it to chip or shatter. Also, if this knife ever gets a chip on it, I got to replace the whole thing. Helical cutters, they're segmented. So you only have to replace the one that's damaged, and that's assuming you haven't already rotated the little helical cutter bit, because theoretically you could have 4 edges on it, and basically 4 times the life compared to one of those knives. That being said, I really didn't expect to find helical cutters at this price point. So, what do I think of this thing? I'm happy with it for now. There's no glaring flaws or anything like that to make me regret buying it. But, like I said, if you're in the market for a jointer and you've got the room for it, look for a used full-size one instead. Just make sure it hasn't been ridden hard and put away wet. And hey, if you end up buying one of these from Princess Auto, you need to absolutely make sure you tell them that Discount Sasquatch sent you. You won't get it any cheaper because they don't have any idea who I am, but it'll confuse the heck out of them, and that's what counts. Take care. Also, just a general piece of advice, if you've got one of these cheaper grippy things that come with these cheap jointers, depending on the wood you're putting through, this thing may not have much grip. On this piece of some kind of wood, it's fairly rough, so this does a decent job gripping it. No issues. However, this wood right here, you can kind of see how it's slipping. My advice, go grab one of these grout float things. Couple of bucks probably at Harbor Freight or something. The difference is night and day with this. Absolutely no slippage with this. And you can even use it for your table saw. Just be careful. Also, if you're wondering why I actually bought this thing and why I'm suddenly doing woodworking, well, this was my previous stack of wood that I had to work with, and I was building stuff like that and this. Don't ask about the flag. This is not political. This is just a very good dust cover right now. So I did build stuff like this, build the deck in the backyard. build these attic things up here because the ceiling is ridiculously tall in this garage, whereas the sides are extremely narrow. So back to what I was saying. Recently stumbled across a bunch of hardwood for a really good price. Most of it is scraps and offcuts, but I figured, hey, this way everyone gets a cutting board for Christmas. Oh, and here's the leftovers here in this picture. That's in my parents' garage right now. So yeah, that's why I think this is a good investment right now for me. In any case, hope I help you out if you're thinking of getting a jointer or this particular jointer. Take care.